Cigna recently released their Loneliness in the Workplace 2020 report. I thought we would take a few minutes to go through some of their key findings, talk about what that means for the workplace. This is a very, very, very important topic because as you're going to see, feelings of loneliness, particularly in the workplace, in this report are going up. That's not going to be good for anyone. That's not going to be good for team cohesion. That's not going to be good for collaboration. It's not going to be good for productivity, and it's not going to be good for overall results that your team is able to produce. Now, if you want the full report, because again, I'm not going to go through all of it, it is available for free on Cigna's website. I'm sure you can Google loneliness in the workplace, Cigna. It's going to pop right up. Get your free PDF. You might even want to print it out and, have it with you when you're watching this video. Take some notes in the margin so you can get your thoughts on it. All right, let's look at the very top line key findings. It is crucially important that we come together to combat loneliness in the workplace. The study revealed that, number one, Americans who feel as though they work less than they want, have poor relationships with their coworkers, or do not have a good work-life balance are lonelier. More than 1 out of 10 lonely workers say their work is often, most of the time or always, lower quality than it should be. On average, lonely workers say that they think about quitting their job more than twice as often as non-lonely workers. Now, a couple videos ago, and I actually just published an article on Forbes today about this, I talked about new findings from Achievers that said that 64% of the American workforce could potentially leave their jobs in 2020. Achievers has a lot of great advice on what organizations can do about that. Go ahead, watch that video from a couple days ago. It'll provide you with all that insight, or you can go over to Achievers website, download their full engagement and retention in 2020 report to get those insights, or visit my Forbes column, whichever. The good news is that along with these findings, we've identified some ways we can make a difference. Among them, employees report feeling less lonely when they can be their true selves at work and when their employers promote good work-life balance. When employees feel that technology helps them make meaningful connections with their coworkers, yet is not perceived as a replacement for in-person interactions, they are less lonely. That's critically important, that last one. I really hope they dig into that more. Because listen, so much technology in the workplace in which people are communicating, like Slack, email, whatever services you're using, oftentimes they're used to replace the human interactions. What this tells us is that when it's not used as a replacement, but instead as a supplementary device, it can help people feel less lonely. All right, so on this page, what we're generally seeing is that the total loneliness score in America is going up. This is on a scale of 20 all the way up to 80, and we're seeing, let's see, of a possible total loneliness score of 80, the current loneliness score in America is 45.7, up from 44 in 2018. Loneliness is defined as a score of 43 or higher on UCLA's current loneliness scale. So loneliness in America generally is going up. 58% of respondents say they always or sometimes feel like no one knows them well. More than half reported sometimes or always feeling alone, up 6 percentage points from last year. Half always or sometimes reported they feel a lack of companionship. All right, these are top line numbers. I want to kind of just scroll down here. They've got some stuff based on health. Ooh, are men lonelier? Let's take a look, because I honestly think men get a bad rap in the workplace these days. I think people think they have it a lot easier than they do. In 2018, men and women reported roughly the same levels of loneliness. In 2018, 53% of men had loneliness scores above 43, and so did 54% of women. This year, however, nearly 2/3 of men, 63%, have a loneliness score above 43 compared to 58% of women. That's shocking to me and not shocking to me at the exact same time. Nearly 2/3 of men, 64%, say they always or sometimes feel their interests and ideas are not shared by those around them, compared to 59% of women. By comparison, men and women share this sentiment equally, last year in 2018. Half of men, 49%, say that they always or sometimes feel their relationships are not meaningful, compared to 44% of women. While the percentage of women who shared this view increased by 2 percentage points, the percentage of men jumped by 6 percentage points. This data shows one other possible explanation for the isolation felt by men: the work environment. While majorities of employed men and women agree equally that they are satisfied with their relationships at work and that there is some sense that there is a sense of inter-office camaraderie, men report slightly higher levels of isolation and abandonment. 1 in 3 employed men argue they feel abandoned by their coworkers when under pressure, compared to 23% of employed women. They are also more likely to report feeling alienated from their coworkers, 32% compared to 25% of women. And men are particularly likely to report feeling a general sense of emptiness when at work, 41% compared to 29% of women. While men are slightly more likely to report having a best friend at work, 60 compared to 53% of women, and tend to spend time socializing with colleagues outside of work, they agree in larger numbers that they have to hide their true selves at work. 43% of men say they have to hide their true self at work, compared to 34% of women. Again, I'm blown away by this data, and obviously they put it very early on in the report, so this is something they're identifying as important, and I think this is critically important. Listen, so many resources and time and attention has been spent towards women for many, many years now, helping women to develop their confidence, helping women to develop their executive presence, helping women to, like the Me Too movement, reporting sexual harassment, making sure they're taken seriously. Now, none of that is a bad thing. No, I'm a woman, man. Like, none of that is a bad thing. I am a big, big fan. But what have men been getting? And I think oftentimes men are made to feel as though they can't participate in these things, and women tend to think that men have gone off into some secret training where they learn all this stuff and just like the women are just never invited. That's just not true. That's just not true. Oh, this is devastating. I'm gonna dig into this in other areas, but let's dig into other areas of this loneliness report. All generations experienced significant increases in loneliness in the last year, but younger generations remain more lonely. So what are we seeing here? Gen Z, 39%, Gen Z, almost 50% feel lonely compared to 48% last year. And you get down to boomers, which is 43%. So like Gen Z can make fun of boomers all they want with their awful okay boomer saying, but listen, boomers have got a leg up on them when it comes to loneliness. Boomers have got it a little bit more together in this area. There is a correlation between job tenure and loneliness, with new employees feeling more alone. I think that makes sense. When looking at mood indicators by job tenure, newer employees, those who have been in their current position for less than 6 months, are more likely to report a lack of companionship. Nearly 2/3, 64%, feel this way always or sometimes, with sentiment diminishes the longer someone has been in their job. So let's see. More than 10 years, their loneliness score is going to be around that same as the boomers' loneliness score, 43.2, whereas if they've been on the job for 6 months or less, they're going to be up near 50. That makes sense. The longer you're in a role, the more relationships that you have. I do think it's interesting that there's actually not... if you look at someone who's 3 to 5 years in the role versus 5 to 10 years, those are virtually identical. Same with 6 months to a year, 1 to 3 years, virtually identical. I don't know what that means, but I think that's important just to keep in the back of our head. Satisfaction with work relationships and companionship makes for happier workers. A clear majority, 83%, feel as though their relationships with their coworkers are excellent, very good, or good, including 43% saying excellent or very good. A similar number, 80%, report feeling satisfied with their relationships that they have at work. Most, 52%, somewhat agree with the sentiment, while just a quarter, 27%, strongly agree that they're satisfied in their work relationships. So let's see. What the question here is, those who have a best friend are less lonely, but most aren't more likely to leave if the friend does. So 43% are not more likely to leave their current employer if their best friend left work. I mean, that's good news, but again, 64% of people might leave their job this year, so they might both be leaving. Who knows? Satisfaction with in-person interactions at work correlated with a lower loneliness score. So we have this one here, 48.9, use in-person conversations more than I would prefer. 44.2, use in conversations as much as I would prefer. Or 49.4, use in-person conversations less than I would normally desire. So essentially what this is saying is when people find that balance of in-person communications, what they're comfortable with, what they want, then that's going to make their loneliness score lower. But if there are too many in-person conversations or too few in-person conversations, they're going to feel less lonely. I wonder why people would feel more lonely if they use in-person conversations more than they prefer. I wonder why that is. See, the problem sometimes with these reports is they don't necessarily give us their conclusions. They don't necessarily give us their analysis, but I think that that's an important question to consider. The impact of technology has on in-person interactions is mixed. While 60% agree that using technology helps them feel more connected and establish meaningful relationships, 56% acknowledge that it reduces the in-person interactions that it has. I think the moral of the story here is figure out what the right balance is for people. If you have too much, it's going to be a problem. If you have too little, it's going to be a problem. Type of work environment impacts loneliness. 40% of employed Americans work in in-person office environments, while 10% remote, virtual, or work or home office environments. Though remote workers are no more likely to say they always or sometimes feel left out, they are more likely to report feeling that their relationships with others are not meaningful. More than half, 54% of remote workers, always or sometimes feel this way, compared to 45% of those who work in an in-person office environment. I mean, what's striking to me is that the numbers, while they are different, they're not significantly different. There's not a huge stretch here. And what that tells me is there is a minor impact, but not something that can't be overcome with the right strategies. So if you put the right strategies in place to engage those remote employees, you're probably going to be able to mitigate the impacts here. How often do you feel isolated from others? Completely remote people say, 53% always or sometimes versus 47% in-person employees. How often do you feel a lack of companionship? We've got 53% say always or sometimes from a remote position, and again, 46% from in-person positions. So these are not significantly different. Frequent telecommuting and dissatisfaction with remote work both breed loneliness. So telecommuting, if it's more than desired, and again, or less than desired, breed more loneliness. Isn't that interesting? Travel for work, if they have to travel more or less than desired, then it's going to breed more loneliness. Loneliness is more prevalent among entertainment industry and gig economy workers. I think that makes a ton of sense because those are usually more short-term gigs. So I think that is totally on board. Work hours and business size do not impact loneliness. It's lonely at the top and at the bottom. Oh, isn't that interesting? So executives are more likely, it looks like, than, management or senior executives are more likely than executives, who are more likely than management, who are around about the same as experienced. And then you have entry level seem to be the most lonely employees. Loneliness in the workplace affects different demographic groups. Okay, they don't have any fancy charts for this one. We're just going to have to read. In addition to tenure, position level, and generation, loneliness in the workplace affects certain racial and ethnic groups differently. Though all ethnic groups say they feel equally included in social aspects of work, 7 in 10 or more agree Hispanic and African Americans feel a greater sense of loneliness in the workplace. For example, both Hispanic and African American workers agree in higher numbers that they feel abandoned by their coworkers when under pressure at work. They often feel more alienated from their coworkers, and they report feeling more emotionally distant at work. Hispanic workers are also 15 percentage points more likely than white workers to agree that they feel themselves withdrawing from the people they work with. Though these feelings are prevalent within the confines of work, outside of work, Hispanic and African American workers are generally more likely to agree that they socialize with their colleagues. When looking at workers by education status, there are very few significant differences based on satisfaction with their work environment or levels of loneliness in the workplace. Income level appears to be a bigger driver of workplace loneliness than education. Low-income workers, defined as a household income of under $25,000, are more likely to report negative thoughts about their workplace, including often feeling alienated from their coworkers, withdrawing from people they work with, and feeling more emotionally distant from their coworkers. And feeling isolated when they are with their groups of coworkers. Sorry, I'm finding this gray text really hard to read, but we're going to power through. Though a majority of low-income workers agree they are part of a group of friends and even have a best friend at work, they are significantly less likely to agree than middle or high-income workers. So I think the biggest takeaway on this one is that our Hispanic and African American employees are struggling more so than our white employees to feel more camaraderie with the group. I think that makes complete sense. This is where sometimes I kind of make a little bit of fun of things like microaggressions that I just think the science is there and it hasn't been proven yet. I've done a couple videos about that. But diversity and inclusion efforts are real. And when people do diversity and inclusion right, it is about developing that group camaraderie, that psychological safety across all different types of groups and the experiences that groups have, not only their work experience, but also their life experience does play a role in that. So, diversity and inclusion efforts that when they're done well, this is the type of thing that you want them to combat to make sure that everyone feels like a full-fledged part of the group, they feel supported, they have that strong psychological safety that we're all looking for. Productivity levels and desired workplace benefits. Most employed Americans consider themselves to be more productive than their peers. Nearly half, 49%, say their productivity all or most of the time is higher than most workers who just have a similar type of job. All right, let's see. Flexible hours, that's not really something we're interested in today. Heavy social media use has a greater impact on loneliness than in 2018. Oh, wow. Look at that use. Oh my gosh. Very heavy social media use compared to 2018, a 4-point jump. Heavy social media use, a 1.5-point jump. Moderate social media use. I mean, everything is going up based on your social media use. And what this really tells us is it may be called social media, but listen, this is not about building real lasting human connections. Oftentimes I think that if you can disconnect from social media, if you can disconnect from engaging with the news, if you can disconnect from these things that tend to bring, frankly, a lot more toxicity into your experience than it brings benefit, be realistic with yourself about what you're doing when you're on these networks. It's usually not very good in the grand scheme of things. Then we're talking about caregivers. Then they have some regional profiles, which I think is interesting, but we're not going to go through that today. I just want to make sure we're quickly skipping down to, okay, that's about it. Listen, I think that the biggest takeaway for me from the loneliness report is this one right here. Men are significantly lonelier at work than women. We need to be engaging the men in our workforce just as much as we're engaging the women with all these special training programs and development programs and all those things. Again, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong at all with those strategies. I love those strategies. I'm a big fan. I've implemented some of those strategies. But I think what this is telling us is that men don't have some sort of secret sauce that they're just naturally gifted with when it comes to some of these struggles in the workplace. So make sure you're not cutting your men short. You need them. You need them, okay? You need them and their contributions just as much as you need the ladies and their contribution. It's really, really important. So I think that's my big takeaway from this report. Strongly encourage you to go download the whole PDF. I just didn't want to spend an hour and a half going through it today.